Hello, it's April, and in the United States that's National Poetry Month. And so today we're presenting a program that is pieces that are written for cello with poetry. I'm going to play two works with my wonderful narrators, Andrine de la Rocha and Howard Patterson, assisting with the words. And both works are written by women in approximately the last decade. The first piece is by Gwyneth Walker, who is an American composer who lives in New England. She lived for many, many years in Vermont, and now she's in Connecticut. She holds degrees from Brown University and the Hart School of Music, where she received her doctorate. She wrote this piece in 2018, and it's called The Marriage of True Minds. And if you're something of a Shakespeare buff, you may recognize that as a line from a Shakespeare sonnet, and you are correct. There are three movements in this work, which actually the full title is The Marriage of True Minds and Other Conversations for Narrator and Violoncello. The three movements are as follows. The first movement is in fact that Shakespeare sonnet, which is sonnet number 116. The second movement is based on a poem by Lewis Carroll, which is somewhat insane. And the third movement is based on the Emma Lazarus poem, The New Colossus, and in this setting is called Mother of Exiles. So I'll have Howard Patterson and Andrine de la Rocha as my narrators for Gwyneth Walker's The Marriage of True Minds.
Let me not to the marriage of true minds admit impediments. Love is not love, which alters when it alteration finds, or bends with the remover to remove. Oh no, it is a single fixed mark, which looks on tempests and is never shaken. It is the star to every wandering bark, whose worth's unknown, although his height be taken. Love's not time's fool, though rosy lips and cheeks within his bending sickle's compass come. Love alters not in his brief hours and weeks, but bears it out even to the edge of doom. If this be error, and upon me proved, I never writ, nor no man ever loved. I never writ, nor no man ever loved. He thought he saw an elephant which practiced on a fife. He looked again and saw it was a letter from his wife. At length I realize, he said, the bitterness of life. He thought he saw a buffalo upon the chimney piece. He looked again and found it was his sister's husband's niece. Unless you leave this house, he said, I'll send for the police. rattlesnake which questioned him in Greek. He looked again and found it was the middle of next week. The one thing I regret, he said, is that it cannot speak. He thought he saw a banker's clerk descending from the bus. He looked again and found it was a hippopotamus. If this should stay to dine, he said, there won't be much for us. He thought he saw a kangaroo which worked a coffee mill. He looked again and found it was a vegetable pill. Were I to swallow this, he said, I should be very ill. He thought he saw a coach and four which stood beside his bed. He looked again and found it was a bear without a head. Poor thing, he said, poor silly thing, it's waiting to be fed. He thought he saw an albatross which fluttered round the lamp. He looked again and found it was a penny postage stamp. You'd best be getting home, he said. The nights are very damp. He thought he saw a garden door which opened with a key. He looked again and found it was a double rule of 3. And all its mysteries, he said, are clear as day to me. He thought he saw an argument which proved he was the Pope. He looked again and found it was a bar of mottled soap. A fact so dread, he faintly said, extinguishes all hope. An elephant, a buffalo, a rattlesnake, a banker's clerk, a kangaroo, a coach and four, an albatross, a garden door, the Pope. This is a very strange, wild song.
Not like the brazen giant of Greek fame, with conquering limbs astride from land to land. Here at our sea-washed sunset gates shall stand a mighty woman with a torch, whose flame is the imprisoned lightning, mother of exiles. From her beacon hand glows worldwide welcome. Her mild eyes command the air-bridged harbor that twin cities frame. Keep, O ancient lands, your storied pomp. Keep your wealth, your well-encrusted fame, keep all these for yourself. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. The wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send these, the homeless, the tempest-tossed, to me. You're tired, you're poor, your huddled masses, the refuge of your shore, the homeless, tempest-tossed. I lift my lamp beside the golden door.
That was The Marriage of True Minds by Gwyneth Walker. So the second and final piece on the program is a longer piece. This is called 7 Poems of Stillness, and it is by the composer Hilary Tann. She passed away in February 2023, so a little over a year ago. She was a very celebrated composer, a lot of really, really wonderful works. Born in Wales, she came to the U.S. in, I don't know what year, but she came to the U.S. to do her doctoral work at Princeton University. And although she imagined that she would go back to Wales at some point, she never did. She worked and taught in the U.S., but she had a kind of a longing for her homeland, if you will, and was very, very inspired by the natural beauty, the harshness of the natural beauty of the Welsh countryside. And her music really reflects that, as well as a great interest in poetry that she had. And she set many pieces with music and readings, actually, as did Gwyneth Walker. I forgot to mention that when I was talking about her. She also was very, very interested in poetry and setting music and words together. This work was written in 2013, and it was written to commemorate the centennial of the poet R.S. Thomas. He passed away in 2000, and it was commemorating the centennial of his birth. He was a deacon in the Anglican Church, and as such, he was assigned to work in a variety of small rural Welsh towns. And his poetry really is about the Welsh countryside and the people to a large part. It is said of him, the poetic world which emerges from the verse of R.S. Thomas is a world of lonely Welsh farms and the farmers who endure the harshness of their hill country. The vision is realistic and merciless. But he also wrote a lot of poems that have a more religious bent, a more spiritual bent. And these poems are ultimately life-affirming. He said of his own poetry that what he was after was to demonstrate that man is spiritual. So these 7 poems of stillness, which are not a set that he put together, these were chosen by the composer. They are from this second category, the spiritual poems. And in this cycle of music and poetry, we sort of see the poet struggling with his own spirituality. The work is in a approximately arch-shaped form. So there are 7 poems, and they're each surrounded by music. So the cello begins and ends the work. And the starting and ending movements are sort of sharing the same thematic material. They're both kind of slow, stately movements. Approximately halfway up the arch, we get movements that have a lot of spinning, whirling, faster movements, and they actually have an asymmetrical rhythm. There's a rhythm of 5s that goes through most of these, which I find leaves a sort of off-kilter, slightly unbalanced feeling, which I think is very representative of some of the poetry. In the center of the work is a slow movement and some music around it that represents sort of the spiritual center of the work, if you will, a stillness in the center of this off-kilter spinning. And you'll also hear some sounds that are called harmonics on the cello, these high, light, glistening kind of sounds, which I think are representative of sunlight, of sun through the windows of the church that's described, and just a variety of kind of colors that you'll hear through this work. So I have, again, as the narrators, Andrine de la Rocha and Howard Patterson. This is 7 Poems of Stillness, music by Hilary Tann, words by R.S. Thomas.
Moments of great calm, kneeling before an altar of wood in a stone church in summer, waiting for the God to speak, the air a staircase for silence. The sun's light ringing me as though I acted a great role, and the audiences still. All that close throng of spirits waiting as I for the message. Prompt me, God, but not yet. When I speak, though it be you who speak through me, something is lost. The meaning is in the waiting. The view from the window. Like a painting, it is set before one, but less brittle, ageless. These colors are renewed daily with variations of light and distance that no painter achieves or suggests. Then there is movement, change, as slowly the cloud bruises are healed by sunlight, or snow caps a black mood, but gold at evening to cheer the heart. All through history, the great brush has not rested, nor the paint dried. Yet what eye, looking coolly, or as we now through tears' lenses, ever saw this work, and it was not finished?
The empty church. They laid this stone trap for him, enticing him with candles, as though he would come like some huge moth out of the darkness to beat there. Ah, he had burned himself before in the human flame and escaped, leaving the reason torn. He will not come any more to our lure. Why then do I kneel still, striking my prayers on a stone heart? Is it in hope one of them will ignite yet and throw on its illumined walls the shadow of someone greater than I can understand? The moorland. It is beautiful and still. The air rarefied as the interior of a cathedral, expecting a presence. It is where also the harrier occurs, materializing from nothing, snow soft, but with claws of fire, quartering the bare earth for the prey that escapes it, hovering over the incipient scream, here a moment, then not here, like my belief in God. The bright field. I have seen the sun break through to illuminate a small field for a while, and gone my way and forgotten it. But that was the pearl of great price, the one field that had the treasure in it. I realize now that I must give all that I have to possess it. Life is not hurrying on to a receding future, nor hankering after an imagined past. It is the turning aside, like Moses, to the miracle of the lit bush, to a brightness that seemed as transitory as your youth once, but is the eternity that awaits you.
simple in your designs, infinite in your variations upon them. The leaf's veins, the shell's helix, the stars themselves gyring down to a point in the mind also from that same point spiraling outward into space. Heartening that in our journeys through time we come round not to the same place, but recognize it from a distance. It is the dream we remember that makes us say, we have been here before. In truth, we are as far from it as one side of the cone from the other. And in between are the false starts, the failures, the ruins from which we climb, not to look down, but to feel your glance resting on us at the next angle of the gyre. God, it is not your reflections we seek, wonderful as they are in the live fiber. It is the possibility of your presence at the cone's point toward which we soar in hope to arrive at the still center where love operates on all those frequencies that are set up by the spinning of two minds, one on the other. There are nights that are so still that I can hear the small owl calling far off and a fox barking miles away. It is then that I lie in the lean hours awake, listening to the swell born somewhere in the Atlantic, rising and falling, wave on the long shore by the village that is without light and companionless. And the thought comes of that other being who is awake too, letting our prayers break on him, not like this, for a few hours, but for days, years, for eternity.
was 7 Poems of Stillness by Hilary Tann, and I just want to thank very, very much my wonderful narrators, Andrine de la Rocha, Howard Patterson. Thank you so much for tuning in. See you the first Tuesday in May with Irish music.